going through, especially African American man. So I think for this topic too, it's critical because black men did not have a safe space to have emotional fluency, you know. And so when we get together.
All right.
We are in the building. So today's episode is, I think I'm probably more excited about this one than I have of anyone we've ever done. And the reason being that this is probably the one that's more near and dear to my heart, and affects more of my loved ones than anything. And what I mean by loved ones is my brothers. We are in the building. Mr. Floyd over there is on the ones and twos.
Yes, sir.
We're going to go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves, and we're going to start over here to in front of me. Introduce yourself, B.
My name is Brian Ali. I've been out here in Phoenix, since 1999.
All right.
Next.
My name is Demetrius Earl. I've been in Phoenix about 20 years, so early 2000s. And I'm all about mental health advocacy, especially for brothers and black men specifically.
You gotta grab that mic.
You don't have to grab it. Just speak up.
Yeah, this is Corey Hanley. I'm a native Arizonan, so I've been out here 47 years. Same as you. Big on mental health. I'm trying to help people, uplift people. It's a big issue right now.
Marcellus, father, husband, grandfather, pastor, entrepreneur, mental health. I'm a mental health advocate as well. And I am from Michigan, been out here in Arizona for about, I've been out here too long. I forgot, 24 years, 25 years. Woo. Yeah, long time.
And to my immediate right, those that all of y'all probably know who this is. You may not agree with what he has to say, but you definitely take everything he says to heart, because I sometimes felt like, as long as I've been knowing him, I felt like this guy sees the future. Introduce yourself, E.
Man, I appreciate that, man. Eric Muhammad, it's always an honor to be amongst the brothers, man.
Yeah.
I really appreciate this, Tim. Thank you so much. I've been around there, probably in Arizona. I came out here, played at ASU, man. A lot of people that you know, and I'm almost a Phoenician now, but it's been great, man. Phoenix.
What you mean almost?
Man.
Man,
I know, right?
If you've been here over 20 years,
right?
you are a Phoenician, because 9 times out of 10,
native.
you've lived here longer than you've lived where you're from.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's very true. Very true.
And I know it is with me. I'm Tim McAfee, man, and you guys know me and some of the things that I've done in the community. But man, this like I said in the introduction, this is something that's near and dear to my heart. Being able to give back in the community and bring us together. This was so important to me, man, and it's been on my heart for a long time. And I know I told quite a few of you guys, and if I hadn't said it, I posted about it. And so this is a special day for me, to be able to have this platform, to be able to kind of acknowledge us. But I want to just go ahead and get on into it, man. One of the things me and B was talking about before you guys came in is I'm actually gonna let him narrate that, because he can tell it how it actually happened. And this, when he said it was so relatable, because we see it all the time. B, what were you telling me about?
I coach basketball as well, also in mental health, like some of these other gentlemen here. And one of my former players called me today, and he's in college. One of the schools that he chose it because he had a black coach who was going to be the head coach. So he's like, a smoother transition. Have black high school coaches and thought it'd be a smooth transition for him. But what he's finding out is coach really is not relatable to any of the black players on the team. And he was calling me wondering why, and it's kind of shaking his confidence and things like that. So, I just told him, I said, man, you got to always believe in yourself. I'm always here for you if you need a phone call, somebody to talk to, give you that extra boost. But don't let someone, because they're not going to relate to you or want to establish that relationship with you, deter you from the big picture, which is getting your education, having love for the game and playing basketball and things like that. But I also told him it's a life lesson, because once you're done with college, you're going to get out in the workforce. You're going to deal with, real life. Not that you're not in college, but you're going to have someone that may look like you in a position, be your superior. You're going to think it's going to be a cool, smooth transition, and it's going to actually be the opposite. It could be the opposite. So I'm just teaching them right now, letting them know, man, you got to learn how to navigate that, how to deal with it. Go talk to your coach, man to man, and just ask him, hey, coach, what's the problem? What's going on? Why is it seemed like it's a struggle for you to try to, relate to us or relate to me as far as being on this team.
What's the disconnect that they're having, or he feels it?
He just actually called and told me about it today, so I didn't even know it was a disconnect. But what he's saying is just not a relationship there. And I think we've all been athletes at some point in time in our life where a lot of players or athletes look at their coaches as mentors. So at that age, they're still impressionable. He's 20 years old. So he's wondering, why is this happening to him? Like, why does he not want to have a relationship? Why is he not wanting to, get to know us a little bit better to help? And it's not necessarily have to be on the court all the time. It can be something off the court where you want to be able to go to your coach and necessarily not have to call home and talk to mom or dad, but someone close to you and say, hey, coach, this is what I'm dealing with. But if you don't have that relationship, now you're carrying that around with you, trying to focus on keeping good grades, trying to perform on the court, have a social life. So that's a lot for a 20-year-old to try to deal with. So I told him, I said, man, you can hit my line anytime you want to. I think you have to remain confident in the person that you are, that your parents raised you to be the player that you are on the court and perform, because now you don't want that coach to hold that against you. And be like, hey, now you're not doing what I asked you to do. So now that drives an even bigger wedge in that relationship.
Meech, I love your response that you had to that. When I kind of informed you on the conversation that me and B had, reiterate what you said to me when you said, dealing with that in the workforce.
So my response initially was, as black men, we typically have to deal with that in the corporate space. And so, but when I come, when I enter the rooms in corporate spaces, actually they actually quiet down. And I don't know if that's because I have the confidence that I have when I walk into the room, but like you said, we almost have to navigate those rooms all the time on how to be ourselves. And you have to learn how to do that. And I don't think 20-year-olds are really adept at that.
I would say too, bro, is like, I think it's probably even more of a challenge right now because so many of these young brothers, man, there's not a lot of interpersonal reaction with guys like us. I try to make a conscious effort myself to actually talk to and reach out to some younger cats, man, because they really need game, quote unquote. Like they really need it. Be like, that's an honor, brother, for you to be able to give them, give that youngster them jewels, man, because brother, like they're thirsty for it. They're thirsty for it. They actually, and I think many of us, some adults, in a sense, black men, like I think to some degree, like we fear the younger generation. I watched a lot of, just not necessarily quote unquote fear, but maybe the reaction that we may get from it
Too
or
much
something to
to
that
that
effect.
effect,
Yes. So, but at the end of the day, man, I think they realize, so that's very admirable, both you brothers, man, to take that leadership role.
Absolutely.
And I actually would like to chime in on that. That is amazing because as we sit here and we talk about mental health, one of the biggest things is being able to find those outlets and those people that we feel comfortable with talking to.
Yeah.
And so for that kid to feel comfortable with telling you and talking to you, I think that's the purpose in all of this, is that we want to try to open those doors and let not only our kids but our men in the Black community feel comfortable with voicing their concerns and feeling comfortable with talking to another Black man. Because I was talking earlier that a lot of times, man, the person that we feel the most uncomfortable with talking to and open up with is men that look like us.
Yeah, I think that's the
Wow.
biggest struggle. I own a men's mental health group outside of my professional space. And I think that's the biggest struggle that I continuously have is when I have a social event, I'll have 50, 60 guys show up. When I have an event where I'm like, hey, I got a doctor of psychology coming to talk about self-care, mental health care, how to keep up with that, I have 10 guys show up. My ideology is communication is the most essential thing on this earth. Everything requires it. Typing on this phone is giving instructions to your phone on how to what to do. Same thing with a computer. Every relationship, whether it's interpersonal, work relationships, whatever you name it, communication is how you build those things. And I feel like, honestly, that's where our biggest struggle as a whole is. We don't communicate out of fear of vulnerability, out of fear of being judged, etc. So those things, I think, will hold people back a lot.
And if I could chime in, man, excellent, because mental health in the church, being a pastor, you have to, a lot of things in mental health were demonized by people, whether they were Christians, it doesn't matter. The religion side of things demonized what men were going through, especially African American men. So I think for this topic too, it's critical because Black men did not have a safe space to have emotional fluency, and so when we get together, it's all about, I gotta size you up first,
Right.
But I'm hurting. You don't see my pain. I just look like this.
Yeah, and
But
I don't
on
know
the
if I can let
inside,
my guard down.
right.
Because I don't know if you're gonna take advantage of me.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
you gonna size me up, but the way you looking at me, and then growing up, I'm sure that probably half of us in this room grew up in an environment where we saw murders, we saw homies get killed, we saw. I mean, at least for me, I'm gonna speak for me. I can't
Well, I
put
can
all
tell you
Black
with
men.
everybody I know in this
You know
room,
what I
we
mean?
all grew up around
So
that.
guess what that did to us? It caused trauma.
Yeah. And that makes it even harder to talk to somebody.
Absolutely.
And open up to have the trust.
Yeah. And so that the trust issue is gone. We didn't do it. We didn't cause it. It was created. Our environments created that for us. And me, I opened up actually at a men's group. Father figure that was like, man, don't call me son. I got angry when the older man said, "How you doing, son?" What? I would go off. Trauma.
Yeah.
Stepfather. He wasn't the most nice guy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He was not a mentor, not a leader. He was abusive. And so taking that outside of the house, going to school, navigating a neighborhood where we grew up, very poor, seeing these murders, rapes, all kinds of crime, right? So we come together, we're now stuck in this mentality, but yet we're professionals. So we climb with this corporate ladder. We got money. We doing our thing, but we still have not got rid of that ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. Now I'm 40, but I'm still 4.
And I think that's the other part of it too, though. If you're dealing with abuse or struggle like that, you're always used to just moving on and not dealing with it, or like, function every day and just pushing whatever that is away.
Yeah.
So you get into that habit, or it's just a protective thing too for yourself, as it is that you don't touch those areas.
Mm-hmm.
So the last thing to do with your with people or anything is even go there, one, trust and everything else, along with just creating that kind of situation for yourself and the environment to go and discuss such things.
In some of my studies, I think I might have mentioned it to you last time, Tim, or maybe I didn't. But in some of my studies, man, I started studying Scientology. I highly encourage everybody to go study Scientology. It's a very, very powerful tool. If you're an intellectual coward and if you don't, you may be scared to venture into I'm just not that person.
Yeah.
I prefer if, I'll study Satanism.
Yeah.
You know, because at the end of the day, I need to understand.
to understand.
You
You need to understand
It's like going into a game,
Exactly.
right? So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
study game film of your enemy.
Yeah.
So I'm not an intellectual coward in that way. So I decided to go in and study in a highly end because what they do is they do what's called an audit. It's very powerful. So essentially, when you go through and you're talking to this individually, what they'll do is they'll have you bring it all out.
You're right.
Talk to me about Marcel. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
this and that, right? And then you literally, because what we don't understand is it's that what we're talking about runs physically through our veins. It is absolutely a physical
That's
thing.
deep.
Trauma that runs through our brain. It's
Yeah.
generational. You follow me?
Generational. Yes.
Generationally. So when it comes to that vulnerability that we were talking about, like you said, Brother Corey, it becomes difficult. You know, trust is a very tough thing sometimes, man.
Yeah.
You know, for
Especially
me to
with
know,
us.
yeah, facts,
Yeah.
man. For me to know, man, Meech, I can tell you this, man, but and I'm so sure, brother, that you're not gonna tell nobody. It's just between you and I. We have to be at that place. We have to get to that place, man, where we're honorable, who are high. We have because I'm not into the holy thing. I'm just in the higher spiritual, spiritual plane, right? So in essence, man, if we're able to do that, and we can just capture that trust with each other, and we just feel that we know it's real, then I can call Tim up and have some very difficult conversations.
Yeah. And we've had
That's good.
And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we've had them.
Courageous conversation.
Yeah, we've had them.
It's important.
But
Yeah.
the other thing that we don't realize dealing with that trauma, man, what comes with that, and we talked about this before a couple times on the show, is that start creating trauma bonds.
There
And a
you
lot
go.
of people don't understand that when you don't get that trauma off of you, you start creating bonds.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
every relationship you touch is a trauma bond. And you take that in and out of relationships, and it never ends. So you become more attracted to trauma.
Absolutely.
You start becoming more and more attracted to trauma.
You want drama?
No,
Right.
seriously.
Exactly.
No, like I had an experience like that, and not even
That's a good point.
And honestly,
Lay on that.
that experience is what made me go to therapy. And I'll
Yeah.
openly say to anybody, therapy is the best decision I've ever personally made in my life. For two reasons. It really taught me about myself and how I operate, and it really helped me understand boundaries are needed, period. Right? And I think because we have so many interpersonal relationships, family members, right, friends that we've been friends with for a long time, we allow them to cross boundaries that we don't even realize we're supposed to be keeping, right? And so my last relationship, I think, was one of those that you were speaking of, Tim, one of those trauma bond situations. And soul ties are real, and I don't think we understand, like, they're very real.
Yeah.
And her and I were off and on for 7 years. That's how long that was. And it still took me another 2 or 3 years after we actually finally really split up to finally be like, okay, I really want to actually break that tie completely, right? Because that trauma bond tie is strong, especially.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's almost like it becomes a way of life for you, almost, man. And when it's no longer around, if that trauma bond is strong enough, what ends up happening is you almost go into like withdrawals. It's like being an addict. You know, I don't know exactly what it feels like, but you seek that. Like, and then when people that aren't traumatic come around you, you shy away from them. Like, and it's sad because just like addiction, the only way that you will ever get over an addiction is to realize you actually have one.
That's first step.
That's the first step.
And what's even sadder about that is getting to that step. That actually, once you build trauma bonds, man, that takes years. If you're blessed to be able to get through that in months, it's truly a blessing. But that's something that takes years, and because what happened is your facade and the energy that you put off is only attractive to other people that like trauma bonds.
Right.
So not only do you have to change your physical and how you carry yourself and your conversations, but you have to change your mental, your spirit, the whole nine. And to allude to what Meach was saying about therapy, man, therapy is probably the best thing that you could ever do, because even from the standpoint of just having somebody to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because a lot of times when you're going through trauma and you have trauma bonds, you will only seek out people that is going to feed your
That validates you.
exactly.
Yeah.
And all they're
Feed
doing
my
is
trauma.
validating your trauma.
Yeah.
So it's not really helping.
Right.
And
It's
so
venting.
Right.
exactly. So what you'll find out, even outside of your relationship, your intimate relationship, the people that you have in your circle are all trauma bonds,
Mm.
because it makes you feel better about your situation.
Right.
So not until you start cutting them ties,
That's
and it goes back to what you're saying is you have to audit your life.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, you should be constantly auditing your life.
Yes.
Constantly auditing your life. And because a lot of times, we deal with people that have spent their life being able to finagle people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I tell people all the time, you want to know where you stand with somebody, don't have something to offer.
Mm. Wow.
But that's the problem too, though, is auditing your life. A lot of people are auditing their lives, and they're not even honest with who they are or know who they are.
Yeah.
And that comes the problem too, where those who deal with abuse, once you face it or you're okay with it, or you realize, hey, I'm not the only one, or I'm not weak, or whatever it is for whatever you're dealing with, once you reach that, you lose the fear of being more conversative about it.
That's true.
You're able to help more people that way, and then you are able to audit your life better that way and do things. So a lot of us are, I should say us, a lot of people, they're just fake with themselves, especially if they come from trauma. They've learned that habit of how to hide that, lie to it, trick themselves, even though they know they're tricking themselves, and getting rid of things that are good for them if it makes them face that, because they don't want to face it yet. They're not ready.
Yeah.
So they may audit themselves the wrong way and audit out what they need versus.
Go ahead, B.
I just wanted to touch on something you said, and being able to have communication. Meach said it also is the key. A lot of times when I work with patients in the hospital, I've told them you got to have somebody you can talk to. Like every person needs that one person in their life, no matter what they're going through. A good day, a not so good day. I don't like to say bad days. I always say a not so good day. But you got to be able to pick up that phone and call somebody, whether it's to vent, whether it's just to yell, scream, talk, get something off your chest. Every person needs that. And I tell them when they leave the hospital, hey, make sure you got that one person in your life, whether it's your therapist, family member, close friend, your significant other. You need that person that you can bounce things off of, to get things off your chest in a safe place where you don't feel judged. I think that's the biggest thing with people with mental health is a lot of people don't want to talk about what they go through, like what you guys are talking about, the trauma bonds, because of the fear of being judged. You don't want to be judged. Nobody wants that. You don't want to say, oh, I went through this, because you like, man, if I tell them, like you said, E, if I say, hey, I went through this, now you worrying about, man, how's that person going to look at me, man, once I get up and leave this table?
Exactly.
How are they going to look at me when I leave the room? So
You have to not care.
Yeah, I'm about to say
You have
that.
to not care.
Yeah.
You have to
No,
get to that
that's
point
the
where you
key.
don't
I'm
care.
not
You
gonna
have
say that.
to have that strength and know,
being
actually,
jealous.
what I went through, I'm actually stronger now.
Right, yeah.
I'm stronger than that person who has no clue of what maybe going through something is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
My
Or
situations
something real
don't
is.
define
You know
who
what I
I
mean?
am.
So when you face something real, oh my God, you know what I mean? Where you're like, I've been
And-
here.
and
You know what I
that's-
mean?
and that's-
Let's
you know-
pick it up. Let's go.
Real talk, Corey, because one thing I had to go through, I was going through a divorce in the last couple of years, and one thing I just came to realize and understand, I'm totally okay with having very hard conversations with me.
Yeah, you have to.
You know what I'm saying?
Hold on,
Yeah,
bro.
absolutely.
Say that.
You have to.
Say that one more time. Please say that again. Say that again.
I'm very okay with having hard conversations with me.
But you weren't always that way.
I wasn't, and
Yeah.
that's the story I was going to get to,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
very true, Corey. Until you have some alone time,
Right.
Yeah.
and you are okay with having them hard conversations with you, and you have some alone time, and you're able to actually sit and let things marinate,
Yeah.
and really just kind of really think through things, and you understand. I realized within myself, man, like I have a damaged ego.
Mm. See, this
Like-
is black man talk right here. I like that.
Like, I'll say it in this regard is like, I'm changing my name because I no longer want to be known as Big E. Because that's been damaging to me. See,
Yeah.
I've had to live up to that.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
been a problem.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it was a problem for me until it was a problem.
Right.
You follow me?
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm totally okay with that. But like, that's one because I no longer want to be known as Big E with that moniker. I just want to be Eric, man, which is all I've ever wanted to be anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
I just appreciate the brotherhood, man.
Yeah.
Like, this is the gods, man. Y'all are gods, brother.
Absolutely.
But Corey and Meach make a great point, man. You have to get to the point where you don't care what other people think.
Yes.
And then the other thing that you said, E, you have to be you become even more powerful when you can accept being by yourself and not needing acceptance of others. And I tell people that all the time. Once you learn to accept yourself for who you are and what
Yes.
God made you to be, you become a more powerful person. Other people's words won't affect you. You won't leave feeling like, damn, I messed up.
Right.
Because I've been through that.
Yeah.
People look at me and I'm like, I've known Tim for a long time since I moved to Arizona. And people get on me about the way I coach. Am I tough on my players? Yes, I'll be the first one to admit that. But I love them all. And I'm the first one to go put my arm around them, give them a high five, great job, whatever. But I want to teach these young men to start being accountable at an early age and always believe and have confidence in yourself. And don't ever, the one thing I've learned from being in the behavioral health field, don't ever let nobody take your confidence away from you.
That's it.
Because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will.
It's so much easier said than done. But you're correct.
No, it
And
is.
it takes the growth. I think that's part of life and part of growth, And a lot of times, I think, especially speaking for myself, I didn't have that figure to put that in me to help me to understand that as an early age, so it becomes a habit.
It does. It
You know what I mean?
absolutely
It has
does.
to, and so you have the other habits.
And that's I
What-
love
what-
the communication.
Oh, go ahead, go me. I'm
I
sorry.
love the communication piece, bro. Because here's the old cliche.
Humongous.
The most important.
The old cliche in the
Absolutely.
business where everything rises and falls on leadership. I stumped it. Everything rises and falls on communication.
Yep.
Because you can have a great leader who know how to inspire, but he's a poor communicator.
He's not a great leader.
Nope.
Thank you.
That's the quality you must have.
I think part of what we go through as black men coming up is we lack communication because we don't have a safe place to communicate. If we big on fatherlessness in our community, right?
We're always against
Who we communicate
Right.
with? We communicate with Big 40 on the corner selling bricks. And with feedback is important in communication.
Oh yeah.
So I love the piece that we can talk to them and mentor them. That's awesome. But when I tell you that you need to get this straight, and they say something back, feedback is going to be the key.
That's right.
Like I went to a therapist, no pun intended against him. I'm sitting there after my mom just passed recently, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, man, I'm so messed up in the inside. Mom was dead. You know what I'm saying? Mom was dead. She was best friend. Before wifey, mom was the only woman I loved. You get what I mean?
Right.
So when she left, a part of me left. So I needed to go somewhere to figure out how do I grieve as a black man, not just a man, because we grieve different in our communities.
Way different.
You know what I mean?
Way
So I had to figure this out. I'm sitting there. He's a Caucasian. No, like I said, no pun intended against that. But he couldn't understand me. It was like we were so distant. I'm like, what do you do? I'm like, but that don't really relate to me. But I get what you're saying. But that's not relatable to me. It's not really because of our ethnic background. It's because our environments were totally different, sir.
Yeah.
And so he couldn't feed back to me right.
That's
That's
tough.
So I let some.
I had a woman.
You
I had a white woman, and she made the most impact that I've ever had anybody make an impact outside of my coaches.
Right.
Literally. And grief is different, right? We grieve death.
Right.
We grieve
Divorce.
Yeah, exactly. Relationships ending.
Yeah.
Grief is a different thing. It's a spectrum, essentially, right? And I think, like you said, I think that's the first person that I actually was in love with. Lost a baby with her, right? Stuff that I had never experienced personally.
Yeah.
But what I found out about therapy is you have to go in really understanding there's something that I need And if you don't go in with that thought process, like I need to
You'll
help
be trying
myself,
to take in
it'll
everything.
never work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It won't
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
If I can I ask you, Marcel, is like, pardon me, Demetrius, like, what did you think that you needed? If you don't mind sharing, what did you find out that you needed actually?
So, what I really needed was, I needed to understand how to be in control of me,
Yes, sir.
not allowing her to let my emotions run high and react all the time based off of what she was doing, thinking how she was acting. Because I found myself doing that. She would get a rise out of me every time she needed to or wanted to. And honestly, we broke up for 2 years and decided to give it another go. And within 6 months, I was like, no, man, I'm done. Because she was still trying to get rise out of me. That don't work no more. I'm not here for that.
And it goes back to what Corey said earlier, man. Is like
Conflict resolution.
Until you can be honest with yourself, you will never be able to be honest with anyone else. It's impossible.
Impossible.
It is absolutely impossible. And it is so true what Meech said about therapy. Is like you have to go into therapy in the right frame of mind. You also have to go in understanding what you need, like he said, because what ends up happening is your filtration system is turned off if you don't have an idea of what you need. So you start taking in all this information, and you're such in an emotional state because of whatever it is that drove you to therapy. Is you're throwing away information you need. You're keeping stuff that you don't need. And so it's definitely something that it takes preparation when you're going to therapy in order for it to be effective. And that actually leads into my next conversation is there's nothing that you can have in life, I don't care what it is, without communication. I don't care what it is. But the cherry on top of that, you have to have effective communication.
That's right.
I could sit here and talk for 2 hours and not say one thing. And a lot of times what that is, man, is understanding who your audience is. And who you are.
Yeah.
It's like what Eric said about his, studying film, against your opponent, with your opponent. You want to understand your opponent's tendencies, how to react to what they do. And if you don't take that time to watch, and we're going to call it, if you don't take that time to watch game tape, you're going to be lost. Because what ends up happening is when real life hits, it's not mechanical. It's not, you can't predict it.
There's no tape on life.
Exactly. There's no tape on life.
There's no game tape on life.
There's no game tape on life.
And for us, we didn't have a silver spoon.
No.
So
No.
that's another challenge.
Yeah. And it's so important, man, that we keep those open lines of communication. And I say this all the time, man. And everything in life with us is a decision. Everything that every one of us sitting at this table went through is a decision we made.
Yep. That's a fact.
Whether good or bad, whether it was self or somebody involved, it all came down to a decision that we made.
Yeah, that's a fact. One thing that I actually realized in that, because I think during these times, like I don't know, it's been an uptick in this male-female battle, right? And it's being plastered all over the internet for everybody to just engage in men versus women. Like that's just some of the most ridiculous, like it's just a very ridiculous thing. And what I had to realize is that going through and just not just relationship wise, but ultimately I suffered and I didn't have a lot of self-awareness. Self-awareness is a very, very big thing. See, that's what it really allowed me to have those conversations. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
See, that self-awareness kicked in. I'm like, wow, like I was really a scumbag.
Yeah. Now with that self-awareness, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, and that allowed me, it freed me.
Right.
Because I
You
really,
accepted it.
And most importantly, Meech, is that even in my acceptance, sir, that I was able to be okay with how much of a scumbag I was, which was totally liberating, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And that's just, it's been a very comfortable place for me.
Yeah.
Because nobody can say anything. You can't say anything to me,
Yeah.
Marcellus, you're not going to damage my
Yeah.
ego. So I'm like, even before, like, I'm just not that guy where you can just say a bunch of stuff to me, like, because I used to really bag real. Like, I used to be a hell of a bagger.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
you
Like,
was. Yeah,
you
you
really
was.
can't get to me like that because my ego is
Hey,
like,
whatever you
again,
say to E, say it and keep
I
it
just
moving. Don't give him a chance to respond.
Right. You were those guys in high school to make you cry when you
Yes,
bad.
I was at a certain point, right? But
I was for sure.
at the end of the day, man, like this self awareness, and I'm sure you're gonna finish too, Corey. It just, it really, I really appreciated where I am now with it, and then where I'm going, because I can see like, man, I'm actually, and I can look at myself and say, man, I'm actually growing, and I can see that growth. And if I wasn't, I'd be okay with telling myself I wasn't, But one in the last point, Tim, what you were talking about, man, is a very critical thing, and it's what you did be with that young man. But again, effective communication, keyword obviously, man, being effective.
Yeah.
The mathematical side of that is force times distance. So I can be trying to push a 2,000-pound boulder all day, but if it doesn't move, I've done no work. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
If it does not move,
You're just
I've
working.
done no work.
You're just physically working.
I'm physically exerting energy, but
Yeah.
I've actually
You're exhausting
done
yourself.
zero
Right.
work
Yep.
because it's never moved.
Right.
Just spinning that wheel.
I'm just spinning my wheels.
Yeah.
So that was a very powerful thing, and it reminded me of that, man. And that's and to me, I'm like, and I'm sure you go ahead and finish with that.
Yeah, when you were saying self-awareness, it just popped in. I'm ADHD, so sometimes I'm just going. That's what's happening.
Adult
So,
ADHD.
so don't say, I apologize there for jumping in. But when you were saying that about self-awareness, it just hit with me. I think a big thing about that self-awareness, and especially, it ties into everything. If you're going to truly get help or truly have that self-awareness, I think there's something missing that maybe we aren't really talking about, at least for me, and it's not to a specific type, but a spiritual awareness.
Yes.
I think when you truly, touch inside of your spirit and understand that, and the powers that then are outside too, the energies. Yeah.
Hey, in regard
It
to
helps you to then have that peace and know that I am okay.
I think that
and listen
women
to
struggle
those.
with that at a very large level, with that spiritual side, with that spiritual, like
We're
just
supposed to guide
openness.
them for that.
Yeah,
That's,
I think that they
believe you're
struggle
right.
with that.
I believe you're right.
We're
But
supposed
they,
to
and now
guide
their
them.
minds are so, not all or anything, but there's all that work on TV with the
Yep.
different shows and the be
That's
this
what we.
and
That's
see
what we
that
battle.
and
That's what we
Yeah,
battle.
we try.
with.
date this.
That's what we're
I'll
about.
clean that up though.
that
'cause-
they don't allow themselves to be guided anymore.
Well, I'll clean that up because I think
And that's not a bash.
No,
That's
it's
not-
yeah,
of
yes,
course.
right. Not
Of
at all.
course.
Not at all.
I think as men, once you understand, women's minds are actually just like that. Their minds are everywhere. And that's no offense to women. Their minds are everywhere. They're trying to be mom. They're worried about body. They're worried about, am I satisfying to a man? Am I going to be okay being alone? I have this task to do, that task to do. Like once I accepted that women literally have 15 things on their mind all the time, I had to look at my grandma. I had to look at my mom and be like, oh,
You got to study it.
I get it. Right? But I'm the youngest person in the room. I'm 36.
No, I am.
You said you were 47. It's okay.
He got the young man. God, he got the young man. You are not getting nothing past him at all. Hey, you got it all. This man will tell you from 10 years ago, the last game I played on the court, what the score was between us.
I got an elephant.
I got that. But point being
That's
is,
a good thing, though.
it is a good thing. I can recall a lot. But I had to really understand and accept that, again, no offense to women, but they're like that. And once I started dealing with women in a different way, it was like, I've even had women, hey, calm down real quick. Like, let's take a breather. Let's talk about one or two things. And then they come back to me like, that helped me so much, right? But my point being in 36, I think I started to understand my self-awareness very young. And I would say young because I think I was 29, 30 when I really started to go through that process.
Good for you.
Being okay, but it was that relationship that I'm talking about. I was with her from 25 to 31, and it just drug me down. And I couldn't figure out what it was and why I kept going back and staying until the last time I went back. That's when I realized God was showing me, you're not ready for anything or anybody serious until you control you at all times.
That's correct.
It's gonna ruin it.
That's correct.
It's
I've been
just gonna
married.
mess up
Better when you.
I've been married
ruin
20,
it,
29 years,
you'll
man.
let you that-
Really?
Yeah.
I've been married 29 years. I can tell you that a guy asked me, he said, man, what's the secret sauce, to being, married that long?
Yeah.
I said, you tell me.
I'm just gonna do it.
No, and
OJT.
you know what? Let me softly correct. I that's what I didn't want to do. Just go through it. I wanted to enjoy my marriage. You get what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So same thing. I had to be self-aware. See, we get so tied into being aware of our partner
Right.
so much that we forget we need to be aware of ourselves. Like you did that, or you said that. And so I teach too. I was teaching high school, special education, at a school that was pretty much they wasn't really on the spectrum. They had severe behavior issues. Okay, and the whole class, African American young men, probably 2 young women in the class, right? After in that teaching, I thought to myself, a lot of this behavior could have been eliminated if the schools would create a curriculum called self-awareness. Do it somewhere in the school early enough. I mean, later on enough where they can understand what it means.
Right.
Give them some kind of curriculum. I mean, we give them everything else. They got every other curriculum in there to learn. So they can be self-aware when they come out of high school. They're more looking within.
Yeah.
This whole the whole school system,
That's a
the
whole
whole school,
nother-
man. That's
Yeah,
that's a whole different thing.
yeah,
That's a
he
whole
said
different
that
thing.
earlier. No, they being
We
trained.
can go down that rabbit hole, and that's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole other podcast.
This school system,
It's
or
only getting worse.
or what they call the public food system.
Yeah.
It's actually a product of John David Rockefeller.
Yeah.
So we can't really think too much that we're going to get fulfilled.
Yeah,
with his
it-
ideology.
It's gonna get worse before it get better.
Capitalism.
That's what it, and it's all been a financial. That's why we're so far behind,
Right.
and that's why we
In other countries?
that's why we let our children watch and entertainment with fantasy, because we were fed fantasy, a lot of fantasy at a very early age, and not to be too religious with it, but they gave us this fantasy idea of God and Jesus.
Yeah,
That was the initiation, and then now you go and you start to, then you put little cartoons and stuff, and it's just an imaginary world and a fiction world that we've been conditioned to, and we feed it to our children. You know how to watch it. You know how to watch it sometime. Like my daughter, they like children. They get so attached to this iPad lately, and just devices, right?
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, man, it's like I have to sit down. I read to her at night, and I read her the Holy Quran. You know what I'm saying? I read to her the Bible. I read to her intelligent things. So we're not going to bed on stupidity.
Yeah.
You see, so even that kind of that educational system, man, it's just a difficult thing, and it's just you see the problematics that have surfaced, man, for generations, man. From it, it's insane.
Yeah.
I quit teaching as of today.
Not yet. We need you, big brother.
No, I
You're
teach,
gonna make it impact.
bro.
So-
I teach real Black history.
That's real
Yeah.
talk.
The door be closed.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, that's another podcast.
Hey, so encompassing encompassing all of what we just was last speaking about is like when we do these auditing, when we do these evaluations, when we're looking at within ourselves. One of the things I think that we forget to do when we are out here, even looking for a partner or really looking for, a significant other or whatever it is. One, you shouldn't be looking. So that was a bad phrase. But the problem
Why
is,
shouldn't we be
man,
looking?
the problem is because I personally feel like,
I'm not
When
the
you-
guy
when
to go
you-
look. I'm just asking.
I'm not going to look. Is we shouldn't be looking because a lot of times we ask for things that we're not ready to receive. And we see it on social media. a woman will say, I want a man that has this, I want this and this and this and this and this.
He ain't a
And
real
men do it as well. We got this idea of what the woman will look like and this and that. But the one question I tell people to ask yourself, are you ready to receive what you're asking for? And the other question I ask is, are you what you're looking for?
Or you,
And
you're looking.
if I want a woman
Oh, I see.
that could do this and she has this kind of education and you have all of these things, I always say anyway, the worst thing you can have is a type. That's for me.
Mhm.
That's not a popular opinion with everybody, but
I
of
mean, I
course,
like black women, and that's about it. But
yeah, but
that's my type.
hey, and that's okay. But I really don't think when we're out doing due diligence, even in life, bro, it's like you gotta prepare. You gotta prepare for what you want because it's like what we talked about
Mhm.
earlier.
Mhm.
If you don't open your mind to other possibilities, we start pigeonholing ourselves into specific arenas
Mhm.
and we find comfort in that.
Yeah.
And what we talked about earlier is like if I've been if I've been a carpenter all my life and somebody comes to me and say, "Hey, I got a job roofing that's paying you double what you was making as a carpenter." I can't look at that and say, "Hey, this is what I'm comfortable with."
Mhm.
And I think it's even more prevalent with black men is where we had this innate ability to adapt and overcome. Just because I feel like we've been challenged all our lives.
Had to.
And yeah. And so being able to adapt to certain environments is a quality that we just innately have. But what I wanted to get back to though, I wanted to get back to the conversation we was having earlier about we're just gonna say empowerment. Why why is it that when we as black men or women get into positions of power, why do we feel like we don't need to benefit the people that look like us?
That's a good question.
I think you think maybe it could possibly be that we were conditioned that way.
Oh, for
Because I think so. I said
Yeah.
it's definitely what do you call it? I forget.
Social conditioning.
Social conditioning. But it's like, man, we like I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's just like like why don't we? It's like I watched Grant Hill. Grant Hill is popping off
sure. Jalen Brown.
at Jalen Brown. Like Grant, like come on, man. Like this man is all but like Einstein level brilliant.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if and he's probably not even the litmus to use in that respect because like Brent, why did you decide to do that? And it just makes me believe, Tim, like to your question, man, like somebody had to put him up to that. You know what I'm saying? Because in my humble opinion, it's like that's a reach. So you are like you could have said 10 other different things than insinuating that he's a quote unquote conspiracy theorist. I've been a self-proclaimed conspiracy theorist for a very long time, so I really doesn't mean anything to me. But that was a shot.
I don't like the misuse of conspiracy theory because when you think about it, everything that we enjoy was founded on a conspiracy. Like if you would have asked us 25 years ago about a self-driving vehicle, people would have looked at it like, "Are you crazy?"
We're supposed to have flying cars by now.
Yeah,
we do. We just don't.
Well, and I will tell you firsthand, in Dubai, their cops ride around. They are on flying motorcycles. They're on flying motorcycles. So I don't like the misuse of conspiracy theory because to me that's just a different way of looking at things that people don't challenge. Like I've always tuned in to Eric because even right out of college, he was always far beyond his years because he studied life, he studied the Bible, the Quran. He just was always 1 or 2 steps, even 3 steps ahead of everybody else. And for me, I listen, bro. I'm probably, if not the oldest one, probably the oldest one in the room. But for me, man, the education of learning has been so crucial in my upbringing and in my journey. Is that I don't ever want to get to the point to where I stop learning, and I think
You're done.
that's been a stunt of growth for a lot of us as black men. Is that we feel like that we get to a certain age that we don't need to learn anymore.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't
And
even
so-
think that's an age thing.
No.
There's a lot of young guys that don't like
Yeah.
receiving information.
Yeah.
Especially from people that look like us.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
that's true.
Very unfortunate. Because I've been told for a long time, you're wise beyond your years. And of course those I believe the older that I get, the more cliche statements that I run across, the more true that they actually are.
Yes.
And I've been learning that over the last 5 years. Like, man, and I say that to my family, like, that's cliche, but that's true. And I think we struggle with that, receiving information from each other. And to be honest with you, I don't even know why.
I really, and I'm with you.
It goes back to what Corey said, is that we feel that that's a loss of power. That's that we are giving up to someone. If we allow them to think that I got this from you, or I learned it from you, we feel like that's a knock against our power. Like we're giving them power over us, which is not. Our life experiences should be the thing that educates not only myself, but everybody in the room. I say this all the time, man. The life we live is not about us. It's about the people that's coming up after us. And if you can't provide a seed or a morsel of something that is going to allow progress, not just in the black community, but just in life in general, then what are you here for?
See,
What are you
purpose.
here
So
for?
when you say that, it brings me to purpose.
Yep.
And I think that there's a lot of black men out there that don't understand their purpose. They're not seeking their purpose. They're just existing.
Mhm.
Just
Don't
existing.
That's true. That's why I love. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I love what B and I was about to say Corey.
Corey, that's
No,
Corey.
this Corey.
Meeks.
This Meeks. Yeah, I love what B and Meeks is doing. They're mentors.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the missing link. You know, to young black men in the community. We don't have mentors. We don't have people literally taking us on a tour as a man. Mentor. Take me on a tour. I need to be on that tour. Don't just tell me what to do. Show me how to do it.
Yep.
You know, I went fishing years ago. I come from a big fishing family, hunting, you know, all that stuff. Shoot, I remember my uncle. Shoot the rabbit. You know, you see the rabbit, dog, shoot the rabbit. I don't know how to shoot the rabbit. You know, I might shoot you trying to shoot the rabbit because you ain't teaching me how to shoot.
He believes that you ought to understand it.
I ought to understand it. Right, because I've been in the environment.
Because you've seen it.
Right.
Not actually did it. You've seen it.
Right. Don't tell me, and here's the mistake. Wake up, tell the child. Didn't I tell you to make up that bed? If I tell you again, I'm going to whoop you.
You got to show them how to make it.
Stop it. Yes. Teach
Just
me,
that.
show me how to make the bed. So what you guys are doing is, I believe, the key to what we're talking about in the black male community. Them young boys I had in the room, that school I was teaching at, they were all traumatized, highly traumatized. So what did they give them? They gave them medicine in a mental health title. ADHD, BDHD, TDHD, FFD, whatever the D's was. They had 4 of them apiece.
Yeah, but that's
All
the
they
easy
were
way
missing.
out.
Yeah, all they was missing was guys like us who would take them and say, I'll be over there 2 days, you know, give them an hour a week, you know.
They put them on one of the biggest things. Yeah, but you know, ultimately, with the beginning of that is sugar. So what happens
that's worse than cocaine.
100%. So they inundate our people with sugar at a very, very, very terrific rate. It's
Yes.
constant, and it's just constantly sugar is being. So you know, you obviously know, Brother Marcellus, just the effect that has on your brain. You know, and then you look at all the poison food that we eat, man, and it's really, really, that's very much intertwined. You know? But you said something earlier, Tim, you know, and it was, I think you posted something one day, and it was like, you know, you posted, and I said, and I posted about it, and I said, my brother Tim said such and such and so and so. See, it's my brother.
Yeah,
I need to learn from him.
Yes.
He has something for me. You understand what I'm saying? You brothers have something for me. And I'm totally okay with absorbing that, man, and then putting your name out, because I told him, I said, he's one of the only live videos I'll sit and watch, even when he's driving or whatever. He's one of the only brothers that I'll sit and really watch, man. But ultimately, I understand, I realize, man, man, he's got a lot to give me. You understand what I'm saying?
Let's see, he's the oldest one, too.
He said we wasn't talking about age. He said about age. He said the same about age. But I was trying to drive a point.
And to piggyback off what y'all said, I think I realized early that I had the gift of being a mentor. When my oldest brother, who's 41, was like, I look up to you. He told me that probably 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And that's when it actually made me sit down, because I was just like, how? I had never heard that. Especially from my older brother, right? BBL, we were kids, all that, right? So for him to say he looked up to me, and then my men's mental health group is called Men Improving Men, right? The iron sharpens iron.
Yes.
That's the only way it's going to get sharp.
Yep.
So the only way a man's going to get sharp is by other men helping them get sharp.
That's it.
That's real.
That's it.
And I just wanted to, I asked a question earlier, why as black, when we get in power, why aren't we benefiting other black people?
Oh, yeah.
But the flip side of that, did anybody want to expound on that? Because he kind of touched on that. All right, B.
I think part of it is, man, we've been conditioned, like E said earlier when you first asked that question, that crab in a barrel type mentality. We fear someone else being more successful than us, which I think is complete BS.
It's crazy.
I think
Insane.
that's crazy to me,
crazy.
because
Insane.
if he has something to offer,
I need it.
why not me
Learn
listen
it.
and learn it? Because what he does is not going to affect me. His money don't affect my money. Tim's money don't affect my money. So, but if I can help you be successful and grow, why not do that? But I think ego is part of it.
Pride.
Ego, pride, everything y'all saying is correct. And I think some of us have been conditioned so badly, like he touched on what Grant Hill was saying about just want to stay in that position. Don't want nobody else to climb to that position, but them just be there. And I'm like, man, that's insane.
Gotta get off that point.
Like, you have to give back so someone else can come up and make the situation better. Because if you don't, we're going to continue to stay in the same state that we in.
Stuck in that rut.
And there's a lot of people though that
Totally.
once you get in that position though, they don't allow you to help them out, because then they get the the insecurity, the hate, or they think, oh, now you're talking, now you think you're big, or you know too much when you're trying to help somebody. Now you're talking down to me, or oh, look at him now, he thinks And
But Jewish people run
it
America,
just-
man. That's the problem. And it's not the problem in the sense that it's a problem, because the most honorable Elijah Muhammad says, study the white man in all his affairs. He makes no excuses for his failures. I thought it was a very powerful statement. And in studying them, there's a level of control that, to be very frank about it, there's a level of control that they have over us that is unbelievable. We don't really realize it, but they control every spectrum of our life. This is a different, tough conversation. I don't care what anybody thinks about it.
We having them tough
I
conversations.
speak the truth.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that we believe, and we're more afraid of their censor than we are of uniting with our brothers. See, we've been so conditioned to be so afraid to get this anti-Semitic title. Well, I personally don't give a damn about the title, because throughout my life, some Jewish people have been extremely, extremely, extremely generous to me. So I don't give that any leeway, but I have to speak the truth regardless. But at the end of the day, I think that's solely what it comes down to. See, and it makes people like Grant Hill believe that he has to say that kind of stuff about Brother, which is just it's totally inconsequential. It's just completely inconsequential why you would add that or say that kind of thing.
I totally agree.
It's just that we've got to get out from underneath their power structure, and how we do that. We have to, Tim and I, we've talked about it, but it's just that we have to unite, man.
Yeah.
And if I can chime in on that,
Yeah, go ahead.
man, and I agree. Corey, you guys are on point with this, but I will say a lot of us are afraid to help our brothers or people who get in high places that look like us, because they're afraid of the American backlash.
Yeah.
If you got two, let's use Kamala Harris. and Obama, whatever the case is. And they say, we're going to do this for the black community because they've been ostracized, blah, blah, blah. They're afraid of what white America is going to say, how they're going to react. And I think on a grassroots level, we have the same fear. I was in the behavioral health field too, doing the birth homes. You're familiar with births, right? So when that whole thing, I ain't got to explain. Y'all know the whole thing that went down. Most of us who were running those births were African Americans and Africans. Well, guess what? We would come to each other for information and close the door on each other. Nah, don't give him no paperwork. Don't give him keep that. Run a consulting business. They want that paperwork. Man, here, take this paperwork. Bro, I'm not afraid of you coming up.
That's real.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But if they take your stuff, they can use it. Look, I don't care. Mine is already concealed and confined. You can do what you want to do with it. I'm trying to help you.
They do it on a much larger level.
Yes.
Exactly.
Because they come on, man. Like, so lobbyists run America. Lobbyists run America like AIPAC runs America, right? But they give senators and Congress people inside information on trading. Come on, man. So this equates to dollars for them. You understand what I'm saying? See, this is really the hookup.
We need Martha Stewart.
Because if I'm a lobbyist and I'm paying politicians to do my bidding, of course there's secrets being told.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's not be oblivious and silly about that. But that's on a much larger scale. So to your point, brother, yeah, man, another black man walk in, well, damn. Hey, man, just do the right thing, man.
Some of my money, man. He gonna take some of my money.
Do the right thing because the conversation usually goes like, "Hey, man, let's go ahead and get down, but do the right thing because you know how they gonna act if we don't." You know, and both that conversation, which is just very sad that we have to even have.
Yeah, I've seen it on the opposite spectrum too, where a group of brothers, and I was included. Man, that's what we did. Even the Nation of Islam. You know what I'm saying? A large group where I'm from, you know what I'm saying? Guys on the corner selling bean pies all day. But guess what? They support each other. They got their own stores. They got their own banks. You know what I mean? And they helping each other come up. It's not, no one's over the next person. Titles are important because they're earned. Right. But at the end of the day, we're still equal. And so when I've seen both sides of the spectrum. I've seen brothers support each other in a way to where, I'm talking on a high frequency level, where all of them driving Benzes and BMWs and understand financial literacy and all that stuff. They did support that group. And then on the other end of the spectrum, saw jealousy and hate.
Yeah.
So I think it's the poison environments that we choose to be in sometimes that don't support us. And for me, I just choose to connect with people that I understand. You may not support my vision, but if you don't pour into me as an individual, I can't deal with you.
That's that audit. That's back to that audit.
Yep.
Back to the audit. Yeah.
It is. So I want the flip side of that. And this will be the last thing we touch on before we get out of here. Why is it that in the black community, when we have people in power, the black community, there's an expectation that we feel like they owe us?
Because they involved.
So
yes.
Why is it that when we have people in positions of power, we put the onus on them like they owe us?
Innately, we have a village mentality. Innately, it's in our nature, I think, Brother Tim, we have a village, mentality, man. We were raised that way, right. So ultimately, there's a feeling of responsibility, man, when you do go up, or at least it should be. It's not always.
There is a responsibility.
It is, right? But honestly, with so many people, they don't look at it that way. How intertwined and interconnected we actually are, particularly as black people.
Yeah. Do we feel like that is for me, that's a fine line, because for me, I always say this: nobody can do for me that I can't do for myself.
Right. You have to get there.
But there is a level of responsibility that I have that I can't put on somebody else.
That's right.
It's like when we talk about praying and talk about God and all these different things and what it really boils down to. Why would you pray about something that you can do for yourself? And so the reason why I pose this question is that I think in the black community, we have to do, and it goes back to the self-evaluation and all of these different, evaluations of our life, is that yes, we purposely put people in power that look like us to benefit us. But we also have to understand that we have a responsibility when those people in power, that we have to support them and not just depend on them.
Did you feel like Obama should have did more for us?
Well, when I do,
Simple
but
answer, yes.
Simple
answer, yes.
I do, but we also have to understand. We also have to understand politics and how the structure is.
It don't work that way.
It don't really work that way, because we got to understand, like, even if I run for office, I can sit here and tell y'all what I'm gonna do and
once
this
you
and
get
that and
there,
that. But once I get in office, I understand that I'm not the end all be all.
Right.
I'm not the end all be all. I can have all the plans in the world. I can come with a plan and say, hey, I'm gonna do reparations.
Right.
Not if they're not gonna let you.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like a lot of people are taking to social media. They're not understanding politics and the structure of it, because they have to understand that I can come with the most brilliant plan to improve the black community, but if the people that don't look like me don't agree with it, I'm limited.
So
you're gone.
about your pray. Why pray about something that you can go out and do? And my thought process behind that, because I am a spiritual person, God gives you choice. That's the one thing that He actually gives you. And so when you pray, that's what again, cliche statement. Remember I said it earlier. Faith without works is dead. Right? You can't pray and not do work yourself and think you're gonna get the result. Yep. So praying then comes the work.
Yep.
If you're not doing the work and you just praying, then that's empty.
The Bible says that you take one step to God and He will take two to you.
Yeah.
That's in the
So there's gotta be work on your behalf
first, right?
Yep.
Yes. And that's the problem. Like that, like we have
people don't want to work.
There's no personal, like, where is the personal accountability, man?
Well, accountability is tough these days.
It's very fleeting. I have to be honest with you.
It's very fleeting.
It's very fleeting. So at the end of the day, it's like, man, it's like we have to be personally accountable, man. I'm with you, Tim. Listen, man. I ask Allah, man, for understanding and good health.
Yeah.
Both of which I also aid myself on.
Exactly.
By eating right.
By eating right. So I'm just not going, oh Lord.
McDonald's every day.
Yeah, right? Like black people, man, like, I'm just going, my mama and like my mama's, I'm just going to pray to Jesus. Yeah. Man, that don't work. No. The Bible says it say don't eat pork, man. It say don't eat pork.
It say don't eat pork.
Right. And if you make that decision to eat it, you just make that decision.
I gave up pork like 12 years ago. But you're right, though.
Don't try to manipulate it just to fit your narrative.
Just to fit what you want it to fit.
Okay. Let's stop.
That's not right. Let's page.
Hey,
that's not religious.
Hold on. That's E.
It's not.
Please say that again.
What you
just
trying
said.
To fit,
it's not. It's
trying to fit.
We're trying to manipulate what's very real to fit your own narrative, and that's dangerous.
That is the ultimate problem in the world, and it's what we talked about is not understanding yourself and what's going on with yourself. It's easier for you to find a narrative that would make you okay with doing absolutely
or not doing anything at all.
Exactly.
Or not moving.
So that comes back to what we talked about earlier, is what Corey said, is that until you get to the point to where you understand you will never be able to be honest with yourself or anybody else. I say this all the time. If I can lie to myself,
I'm gonna lie to anybody.
I ain't got no problem in the world lying to you.
But I'm
if I can lie to myself.
That's very true, brother.
Yeah, I'm not lying to myself. So.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna lie to you.
I'm done with it.
I'm gonna lie to you. I'm gonna lie to you,
Right.
and I'm gonna lie to you.
And I don't lie to people. If you don't like it, you just don't like it.
There it is.
And guess what? You're getting audited. I'm gonna tell you the truth. If you don't like it, you gotta go.
But we've all had to get to that point, though. I think, depending, and some maybe harder than others, or longer.
Some
than
get
others
some get to it
but again,
longer.
it all becomes on where you came from,
Yes.
what the struggles were along that way. But it's also a continuous thing. It's not forever.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You've got to continue to challenge yourself, like you say, never stop learning, never stop growing. That's part of it. Most of that learning and growing is an internal growth, an internal knowledge, you
Yes,
know?
sir.
So that just has to keep going to be able to
Yeah.
maintain and be that person, you know?
Yeah.
And going back
man,
to that,
look.
with doing the work and, you know, praying and work, the magic and miracle that happens when you're doing that is amazing.
Yeah.
And not everything is good because nothing is always good. I mean, God is good always, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
saying challenges are always going to be there.
Yeah.
That's life.
Well,
But
that's what
understanding that, and
challenges
keep
are
going, knowing
important.
that, and yep,
and
their growth
that's
period.
and that's kind
Yeah.
of that's
Growth
that's
period.
what Meach said earlier is iron sharpen iron, but what you got to realize iron comes in different forms. Iron can be that the life challenges, the trials and the tribulations that you go through, and how you deal with that and how you get through it is what is that education and what's that those building blocks for you as not only a man but somebody in society, somebody that's a pillar in society. But man, look,
Hey, can I say one more thing to that real fast?
nope. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Adversity
Go ahead.
introduces
No, I was going to say, Tim, is like, that's so powerful, man. And, you know, because of that, and Corey, what you said, man, is like, I approach my problems now, quote unquote, mathematically. So if something isn't getting done, if I'm not achieving the right results, I'm applying the wrong mathematics. You see, so it keeps my emotions out of it, so I can, so it gives me a clearer path to success into overcoming what I got to overcome. So everything is a math problem for me now. It's no emotions attached to anything. You follow me?
Yep.
And that's what it's really helped me when I got to that place.
And
Look,
if I could add to that
go
too,
ahead.
sorry, to add to that, the one thing I think is good for people to realize, or just take a moment, is when you are going through those times where you think, you know, oh my gosh, it's too much, or you know, everything is just too overwhelming. If you really just take a moment and think to where you are at that moment, you know, everything is okay. Everything is
It's
crazy.
just a moment.
You're thinking ahead.
It's
You're
just
thinking
a
in the
moment.
past. Yeah.
Just a moment.
You're thinking of everything that really
Just gotta
isn't.
get through that
Take
season.
just that moment right there, and just I have what I need. I am okay. I'm breathing.
Look, I tell people all the time. We talk about how bad our day is. Understand, your best day is your worst day is somebody's best day.
Right.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
absolute worst
That's
day
revelation.
is somebody else's
I
best
think
day.
you have to really travel outside of the country to really actually grasp.
Yeah, that's
Right, like,
very
we arrogant
true.
here.
The first time
That's
I went to
very
Africa, I
true.
was like 21. Right, I was young, impressionable. And another cliche statement: make something out of nothing. When you go there and they're actually making
make
something out of
something.
nothing,
Yep.
you're like,
Yeah.
yeah.
High science, man.
Yeah.
High science.
It take a minute, man.
You said something that I want to end with. You start making things in your life mathematical, and this is what I'm gonna end with. When it comes to that, every day you wake up, you should be in debt to yourself. Every day you wake up, you should be in debt to yourself. So your whole day is spent to break even or get ahead. Start your day in debt to yourself.
Bring the humility.
Yes. So man, I just want to thank you guys for coming in, man. This was such a blessing. Like, I got chills listening to you guys talk. You guys have been an inspiration not only to myself, to the community as a whole. I watch you guys from close. I watch you guys from afar. I see what you're doing, man, and I encourage you. You have my utmost support in anything and everything that you do. And it's not just the men that's sitting at this table. I'm talking about the community as a whole. The only way that we're going to get to where we need to get is if we operate from a village standpoint of view, man. And I really appreciate you guys coming in. You guys are leader, like E said, man. We're all kings sitting at this table, and we have to make sure that at all times we're conducting ourselves like royalty. Because whether we believe it or not, man, there's a younger generation that's watching any and everything we do. And whether you say something to them or not, how you carry yourself is making impressions on them.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I say that not to only my men that's sitting at this table. I'm talking to the world as a whole. Meek said something very important, man. I encourage everybody to get out and travel. You will never really understand your place in this world until you go out and see how other people are living. You can't be dependent on our education system because they always want to be the big bad wolf and everybody else is peons. But once you get out and you see the world, you understand how far behind the 8 ball we are compared to other people, man. So I encourage you men at this table to keep doing what you're doing, man. These are the pillars of where it starts with building our community, man. And so I thank you guys, Floyd. I thank you for always having my back and being a pillar, not only in the community, but this platform. And we want to continue to do this. And I will make this announcement while I have everybody's attention. This is Brother to Brother, but we also are going to create a Sister to Sister. I want this room filled with sisters talking about the same things that we talk about, because I look at this, we talk about learning earlier, is to be able to use this information as reference to where when you're dealing with Black men, you understand some of our struggles that we a lot of times don't communicate. And so that's the other piece of this. And so I want the women's perspective and what they're going through. The only man that might be in a room is Floyd, and that's because he runs everything from a technical standpoint. So we're going to put that together. There is a Sister to Sister coming up, and we are going to dive in our community. So don't think that this is just a Black thing. I really feel like a lot of ignorance comes from the lack of education about other people's cultures. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to get in this room and learn about other people's culture. And so once again, man, I thank y'all for coming in. And how we end shows when it comes to shoes off talk, I say love, peace. We all say love, peace, and soul. And that's how we go out. So how we end all shows, love, peace, and soul.